أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لك الحمد حمدا دائما مع دوامك ولك الحمد حمدا خالدا مع خلودك ولك الحمد حمدا لا يريد قائله إلا رضاك ولك الحمد بالقرآن ولك الحمد بما هديتنا ولك الحمد بما سترتنا يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن نهج منهجهم إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We give thanks to Allah the Almighty who has given us yet another opportunity of meeting together again this year. This is the 5th episode. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given me the grace of witnessing all. Here I am, and I hope, inshallah, I'm going to be around as long as this program holds. Well, I actually got confused when the MC said I'll be speaking for 15 minutes. Thank God I didn't prepare a paper, but I have my jottings here. Otherwise, I would have felt wronged. I want to most humbly salute my big brother, Fadilatul Sheikh Dr. Muhammad Ashafa. He's been a big brother, a mentor from the MSS days till this time. And we had a disconnect for so many years. Then I got to the United States of America in 2007 during my Fulbright fellowship. And the first person they asked me was, "You know Imam Ashafa?" I said, "Which of the Ashafas?" Then they showed me his picture. I said, "Oh, it's my big brother, Alam Sheikh." I want to acknowledge my very good friend. You will discover him during his presentation. I have actually told people that one of the finest brains in the Lagos State University today is Dr. Mustafa Adebello. Inshallah, you will discover him very soon. And of course, that legendary lover of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sheikh Abdul Razak Mubashir Waliullah Afak Allah. You can get anything from Afak Allah if it's because of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can be very sure of that. You can always, even if you want to, in quotes now, manipulate him, use Muhammad, you will succeed. Sheikh Dr. Luqman Adukelore, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. He's so many things, rolled into one. He's a polymath. He's a registered nurse. He's an entrepreneur. And above all, he's a sheikh. A very sound one at that. I remember very well that the first time he actually interviewed me, it was in Arabic language. I was shocked because he had a different identity. Sheikh Luqman, Allah Ibarik Fikum. It's really, really nice seeing you after so many years. When I came in and I greeted him, he greeted me. I didn't realize he was the one because he wasn't as chubby as this then. I've always been like this. Then I'm not sure I have encountered this handsome sheikh before. Yeah. Allah. Sheikh Abdul Hafidh. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just had to do that so that I can adjust. Oh, Sheikh, I'm very sorry. So that I can adjust to that thought of 15 minutes. Because I've been asked to discuss one of the major ailments facing the Muslim community today. And that is the menace of takfir and tabdi'. Takfir, excommunicational declaration. The declaration by a Muslim that another Muslim is not a Muslim. Labeling a fellow Muslim or accusing a fellow Muslim of apostasy or of infidelity. And tabdir, that is innovational castigation. Castigating a fellow Muslim, that is actions in the deen, is an innovation, or his personality is captured as that of an innovator. It's a very complex thing, and I was actually thinking we will go into the historical origin. We will have time to explore the various epistemological terrains connected with it, but I'll just try to give us things to reflect on. Let me read out something. It's just like a poser. Permit me to open this discussion with a quotation from Julian Acker's Killing in the Name of Allah, a mischievous, though not totally baseless review of Adrian Candiat's 2020 work, Fanaticism When Religion is Sick. He writes, in 2016, during Easter, a Pakistani grocer in the Scottish city of Glasgow wished on Facebook his Christian customers a happy Easter. A few days later, he was stabbed to death in the street by a fellow believer. This believer did exactly what a 14th century Islamic theologian, Ibn Taymiyyah, recommended. Muslims who exchange colored eggs with Christians at Easter should be killed. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, is often cited by Salafis and jihadists as a reference for their actions. The killer in Glasgow may not have heard of this theologian, but he shared the mindset of Muslims. The fatwa, or wanting to kill for religious reasons, is a legal concept. The fanatic is convinced that he must follow the law based on how Allah is thought of. This is where I actually got disturbed. According to Islam, and I think Dr. Mustafa will have to take this up, not in his lecture, not necessarily in his lecture, because I know he handles those philosophical aspects of Islamic studies, theology, and what have you. And I think our students should have the right orientation in this regard. This is how Akka sees it. According to Islam, Allah is absolutely transcendent. That is to say, man with his language and thinking cannot possibly express the truth about Allah. We have no knowledge about Allah. Fortunately, there is the Quran that makes clear what Allah wants. Candiate called this a pious agnosticism. Theology is therefore essentially impossible in Islam. When asked what theology is, a Muslim answers that it is the teaching that says that what is forbidden, and that says what is forbidden and what is allowed. This view of Allah is diametrically opposed to Christian theology. The Christian faith is a personal relationship with God, a relationship of love and trust. A Christian can say, I am a believer, but not practicing. This is the man's jaundiced view. But we have, in most cases, we have not addressed such concerns. Just last week, my son had a conversation with a friend, and the person told him that saying Merry Christmas to a Christian is worse than committing adultery, fornication, and highway robbery. He said, you see, there are certain things you will hear and you think it's not going to happen, it can never happen. But the unfortunate thing is these things are happening. In fact, just last Saturday, I was at the Muslim Association of Nigerian Conference. I was a guest speaker. I got there to to meet an old friend. I never knew he was a member of the organization. And on learning about my view about Happy New Year, and I've always said that, I've said that for so many years, for God's sake, this unnecessarily wrangling about New Year's Day, it is sickening. Because as far as I'm concerned, calendars are cultural constructs. As far as I'm concerned, Allah has created two truths, the sun and the moon. These are the things used for reckoning. You give a calendar the meaning you want. So as far as I'm concerned, it is not something you get worked up over and you start arguing unnecessarily. When I expressed my view, my friend sent me a message at night. You have to be very careful with this, your view. I said, for over 20 years, I've been expressing that. And he said, go away, Happy New Year, go. So many a time it is not because of your level of understanding. I've read some fatwas online, and I've seen scholars of repute saying conflicting things. So it shows us that we should continue to engage ourselves, because many a time it is not what we believe, but the way we have chosen to believe those things. That is the problem. So what Julian Aka is saying here is that we do not have an Islamic theology. You only have a master-slave relationship between Muslims and their God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the contemporary Muslim society is plagued by these ailments. I've had students, even at LASU. I remember very well in 2003, I observed that there was a student, anytime I said to him, Salaam alaikum, he would not answer, I would just say, good morning, sir. And I asked him, come, I observed that you don't respond to my taslim. And you know what he told me? Timba dayin long, Monique ma expect alafia alato domini. Me, the fake expect alafia alato domini. And I told him, I said, thank you. And I thank God I am not you and you are not me. Because if I am like you, you will have problems here. You will have a very big problem, but I will not sacrifice my own training, my own understanding for your own stupidity. See, this is a problem. So you have it among Muslim students, in the university, among our brothers in the various Madaris al-Arabiya. So we need to really, really engage that. And I think that is the reason why, well, every year the Muhammadu Rosululah Global Family surprises me. Every year they'll just come with some crazy ideas, and you feel, oh, we've not been thinking about this. You guys are addressing this again this year. And so when I saw the issue of moderation, I felt, yeah, this is one of the areas we have not truly explored. At least in this kind of example, in this kind of gathering where people have the time to really listen and ponder. You know, there are the typical Olobeyo programs where you sing and dance and even forget the main thrust of whatever you might have listened to before the program completes. I beg. Now, what is takfir? What is tabdi'? I think takfir and tabdi' are both byproducts of ignorance. A very good or a very deep understanding of Islam should show you that it is not right for you as an individual to take upon yourself the responsibility of excommunicating fellow believers. And they are two sides of the same coin. In fact, one is a step ahead of the other. Many a time it is tabdi', castigating my action as innovation that precedes the total condemnation, sending me out of the pale of Islam. Most of the time, you first start complaining about, okay, what this guy is doing is bid'ah. And the unfortunate thing is, most of those people who say this have very little knowledge of the semantic implications of the words used in various verses of the Quran and the traditions. For example, the very popular thing is kullu bid'atin dolaala. Kullu bid'atin dolaala. So they do not even want to accept the fact that there could be good innovations and there could be repulsive or reprehensible innovations. So when you say there is a good innovation, they tell you no. And they tell you cannot be a better Muslim than the companions, radiyallahu anhum. Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu, the first day, it was Umar radiyallahu anhu that introduced Taraweeh. Somebody told me Taraweeh was already a part of Islam. He only brought it forward. I said, fine, it was Tahajjud brought forward. But when he brought it forward, it was named Taraweeh, not Tahajjud. And he himself called it bid'ah. When he saw people observing it, Umar radiyallahu anhu said, Ni'matul bid'ah adi. This is a beautiful innovation. And you tell me there can't be a good innovation. Said Umar himself said, this Taraweeh is a beautiful innovation. So which means we can also have ugly innovations. So Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu did this, and there are so many things in Islam introduced by Umar radiyallahu anhu. Things the Prophet ﷺ never did, but the ideational essence are already latent in the Quran and the Sunnah. But Umar brought them out and turned them into institutions. For administrative conveniences, he introduced the Baytul Mal, he introduced a lot of structures for the Islamic community. And nobody will ever say, at least nobody in his right senses, will say Umar was a mubtadi, was an innovator. And if he was an innovator, he was a very good one. Because all the new ideas he brought were good. So in essence, when you say something, before you condemn something, it is something that has to do with the faith. In fact, that has to do with the fundamentals of the faith. Something that will distort the true essence of Islam. It's talking about the hadith, kullu bid'atin dolaala. Every innovation is an act of going astray. Every innovation is bad. Is as if one has gotten lost. So Sayyid Ibn Hajar Asqalani rahimahullah said, when you say kullu bid'ah, yani julluha, most bid'ah, not all bid'ah, most bid'ah will be tantamount to going astray. So it is not that every new things you introduce should, okay? There are so many things we enjoy, even in Saudi Arabia now, which were not there 25, 30 years ago, not to talk of 50 or 100 years ago. So, but all of these things make the religion easy for us. It makes the rites of Hajj easy for people to practice. So, I said ignorance lies at the heart of this. The Prophet ﷺ himself did not approve of this ideological totalitarianism that actually characterizes what people say. Some people, particularly youth now, have not studied, they have not read Islamic studies, they have not studied anything other than visiting various websites looking for fatwas of scholars, and these are the internet scholars, and who just come and say he has now become an authority on Islam, forgetting that there are horizons of interpretations. In fact, there is this cosmopolitan complexity in the interpretational tropes. Let me give you a very simple example. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and Ibn Sirin were contemporaries. Now there was an incident. A man had a quarrel. Had a quarrel with his wife, And the wife started snubbing him. And the man said, woman, you have refused to talk to me. Okay. If you do not talk to me before Salatul Fajr tomorrow morning, I divorce you. I divorce you. I divorce you. So he was hoping the woman was going to talk to him, and she refused to talk to him. And the woman said, if you don't beg me, I don't even want you as a husband any longer. So, but the man was secretly hoping that the woman was going to engage him. So in the morning, after Fajr, he was worried. He went to Imam Ibn Sirin, rahimahullah. When he got to Ibn Sirin, he explained to him what happened. And Ibn Sirin said, how could you be so careless, pronouncing divorce as if you are playing? You have divorced your wife. Your woman will have to go, even if you are going to take her back, let her begin the process of iddah. And the man was going home. He felt bad, and I was only trying to do shakara. You know, I didn't really mean it. He was going back, and he met a friend on the way. And the guy told him, I asked him, what is wrong with you? I explained. He said, no, Abu Hanifa came to town last night. Why don't you just go to him? Probably you will get another ruling. He met Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and he explained everything. Abu Hanifa was reading a book. He didn't even look up. He just said, go home. You have not divorced your wife. And the man went back to Ibn Sirin. I have met a scholar who is greater than you. And he did not, he told me I have not divorced my wife. So when he explained that, because Ibn Sirin rahimahullah was also a pious man, Ibn Sirin smiled and said, asked him, who is that imam you met? He said, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. Okay, so let's go and visit him together. And he followed him there. When they got there, after exchanging pleasantries, Ibn Sirin asked Imam Abu Hanifa, why did you say that he has not divorced his wife? He was so reckless, and he declared talaq. And Ibn Sirin, Abu Hanifa now answered. Said, you know, he gave a condition. He said, if you do not talk to me before Fajr. And the woman spoke immediately. Look at the difference in the way we see things. He said, Abu Hanifa said, instantly the woman spoke now. She spoke. She said, if you two don't beg me. So the condition has been met. So the marriage subsists. Now, assuming both of them never met. Abu Hanifa lives in one town. Ibn Sirin lives in another town. And they have similar cases. Followers of Abu Hanifa will be saying our teacher was right. Ibn Sirin's followers will be saying the same thing. And if these people had had the opportunity of meeting, probably they will have adjusted their views. If we do not have gatherings of this type, we probably will not be able to address some of these issues. The Prophet ﷺ said, Man kaffara ahla la ilaha illallah fa huwa illa al-kufri akrab. Anybody who proclaims the kalima la ilaha illallah, anybody who proclaims the kalima la ilaha illallah, whoever calls such a person a kafir is closer to kufru himself. In another tradition, actually the Prophet ﷺ said, when a Muslim said to another Muslim, you are a kafir, one of them is a kafir. If the person being labeled as a kafir is not a kafir in the sight of Allah, then the person who has called him a kafir has become a kafir in the sight of Allah. And we fall into this error because we don't understand who a Muslim is. Who is a Muslim? You see people bringing so many definitions of who should be a Muslim, and they never stop to ask themselves, who did the Prophet ﷺ call a Muslim? The Prophet ﷺ gave us at least 3 direct definitions of who should be a Muslim. It is sufficient if you say, I am a Muslim. In 630 AD or CE, when the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca as a victor. He said, "Uktubu li kulla man talaffadha bil Islam, fadhalika al-Muslim." Write for me the names of everyone who says, "I am a Muslim." I am. Then he is a Muslim. Let his actions later show whatever he is. Accept him as a Muslim. Not because he doesn't belong to your group, and not because he commits a particular crime. When a Muslim is guilty of a sin, he is only a disobedient Muslim. He is not a kafir. When a Muslim commits fornication, adultery, whatever he does, he is at worst a fasik. He is not. He is just a disobedient believer. The second definition, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man salla salatana," whoever observes our salat, was takbala qiblatana, and faces the same qibla with us, wa akala dhabihatana, and he eats from what we sacrifice, from the animals we slaughter, fadhalika al-Muslim, that is a Muslim, alladhi alayhi dhimmatullah wa rasulihi wal muslimin, upon whom the protection of Allah, His messenger, and the believers becomes compulsory. The third definition is tied to the kalima again. It was, and that is in the encounter of Usama bin Zayd radiyallahu anhu in the battle. He was fighting a kafir, a disbeliever, during the battle, and suddenly the sword fell from the hand of the person. And when the sword fell, the man shouted, "La ilaha illallah." You know, like I would probably have done the same thing. I said, you've been fighting, you didn't remember La ilaha illallah. Now your sword dropped, and you said La ilaha illallah. Usama killed him. When the Prophet ﷺ heard, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Aqala la ilaha illallah wa qatalta." Did he say La ilaha illallah and you killed him? Usama said, "Innama aqala min khawf." O Messenger of Allah, he said it out of fear. The Prophet said, "Afala shakokta sadra. Mada tasna'u bi la ilaha illallah idha ja'atka yawm al-qiyamati tashhadu alayk." Why don't you open his bosom, his heart, to see whether he said it seriously or out of fear? What are you going to do with La ilaha illallah when it comes on the day of judgment testifying against you? So, beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, we should try and equip ourselves intellectually. Read the Quran, read the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now look at the current realities. There are so many of us who still think that the juristic edicts issued in the medieval period should still be applied today, when the conditions have changed, when the society has changed, when the challenges have changed. So it is until we understand that some of these things are context specific that we'll be able to wriggle out of the problem. It is not right for an individual. In fact, if it becomes compulsory to label anybody a kafir, it will have to go through a very long process. In fact, a qualified body of jurists. And even then, they have to be careful. Because the Prophet ﷺ punished people during his time, he never called them kuffar. They committed crimes, they fell into error. The Prophet ﷺ never called them kuffar. And even when you punish a sinner, the Prophet ﷺ will say, do not abuse him. Do not assist shaitan in distorting his affairs. Because you cannot be a true believer unless you are a follower of Muhammad ﷺ. And Muhammad ﷺ was the perfect example of love, of tolerance, of understanding. Even when you are wrong, the Prophet ﷺ will still apply the law of Allah, but at the same time, it will still be merciful towards you, because it was rahmatun lil alameen. It was a mercy unto mankind. It was the atlas of all divine verities. So, brothers and sisters in Islam, we can only get out of this if we know and understand that if we persist, it will be very difficult to establish true love among Muslims. It will be very difficult for us to cooperate, and it will be very difficult for us to win the heart of non-Muslims. I wish you would listen. I wish you would not give Imam Ashafa 15 minutes. Because you will now see how conflict is transformed, how hatred born out of ignorance is transformed to an acceptance of the other without necessarily compromising your identity. You can accept the other. You can acknowledge diversity without necessarily compromising that identity of a Muslim. So there are so many things involved, but as I used to tell you, I have many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. That is what Jesus said in the Bible. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.